He told the whole world he started with almost nothing. A small loan, $1 million, from his father, paid back with interest. That was always the line. But there's a paper trail, tax returns, ledgers, wire transfers his father's company kept for decades. And the documents put a different number on it. Not $1 million, $413 million. This is the story of how the most famous self-made man on earth was made. For 40 years, Donald Trump sold one product better than any tower, any casino, any steak. He sold himself the self-made billionaire, the kid from Queens who crossed the river into Manhattan with a handshake and a hunger and built an empire with his bare hands. In 2015, standing in front of a national audience, he put a price on his beginning. "My father gave me a small loan of $1 million, he said. He'd built the rest himself. It was the foundation of the brand. Every deal, every season of the TV show, every red hat sold later, all of it stood on that one sentence. I did this alone." Here's the thing about a foundation. If it's a lie, everything built on top of it is too. And in October of 2018, 3 reporters at the New York Times spent 18 months, pulled more than 100,000 pages of documents, and went looking for that small loan. What they found wasn't a loan. It was a machine. To understand the lie, you have to meet the man behind it. Not Donald, his father, Fred Trump. Fred wasn't a small-time landlord. By mid-century, he was one of the biggest builders in New York. Thousands of apartments across Brooklyn and Queens, a fortune built on federal housing money and ruthless efficiency. And according to the Times investigation, Fred Trump didn't raise a self-made man. He manufactured one. The documents show Donald Trump was earning money from his father's empire by the age of 3. The equivalent, in today's dollars, of about $200,000 a year. A toddler on the payroll. By age 8, the Times reported, he was a millionaire. In his teens, his father put apartment buildings in his name. By his 40s and 50s, the years he was on television telling America he'd done it all himself, he was receiving the equivalent of more than $1 million a year from his father. In some years, more than $5 million. The small loan was supposed to be the whole story. The records show it wasn't even the first chapter. So let's do what no one did on that stage in 2015. Let's check the math. The myth is a single, clean, repayable loan, $1 million. But the Times traced the actual flow of money and found that Fred Trump lent his son at least $60.7 million. About $140 million in today's money. And much of it, according to the reporting, was never paid back. A loan you don't repay has a different name. The reporters used it. A gift. But the money didn't just come as loans. The investigation describes a steady river of it. Paychecks for jobs the records suggest were barely real. Fees and cash that moved through the family in ways designed to look like business. When Donald's casinos were drowning, the Times reported one of the more striking rescues. In 1990, with a Trump casino unable to make a bond payment, Fred Trump sent a lawyer to buy more than $3 million in casino chips, and walked out without placing a single bet. A loan, the regulators later said, dressed up as gambling. This is the part the brand could never survive. The self-made man's empire wasn't rescued once by his father. The documents describe a son who was caught over and over by a net his father never stopped holding. So how do you move $413 million to your children without the world or the tax man noticing? According to the Times, you build a machine. In 1992, the reporters found the Trump family set up a company called All County Building Supply and Maintenance. On paper, it bought boilers, cleaning supplies, and equipment for Fred's buildings. What the Times alleged it actually did was something else. Pad the prices and quietly shovel the difference to Fred's children, Donald among them, as what looked like business income instead of a taxable gift. A lawyer for the president called the allegations false. Trump was never charged in connection with the reporting. These are the findings of journalists examining decades-old records, not the verdict of a court. But the scale the Times described is the point. Through these structures, the reporters concluded, the Trumps moved a fortune across a generation, and they alleged dodged hundreds of millions of dollars in gift and estate taxes that an ordinary family would have owed. Add it all together, the toddler's salary, the unpaid loans, the casino rescue, the building supply machine, the empire signed into his name, and you arrive at the number the Times put on the public record, not 1 million. at least $413 million. That is the documented size of the small loan. Here's the uncomfortable part. The lie wasn't an accident, it was the most valuable thing he ever built. Because self-made sells. My father handed me an empire does not put you on the cover of a business book. It doesn't get you a hit television show about being the smartest man in the room. It doesn't let millions of people look at you and think, if he did it from nothing, maybe I can too. The $413 million wasn't just money. It was the thing that bought the silence the myth needed. The inheritance built the empire. And then the empire was used to hide the inheritance. And it nearly worked forever. The records that exposed it were decades old, buried in tax filings and family ledgers, and it took 3 reporters 18 months to reassemble them into a single number. Most billionaire myths never get that autopsy. This one did. So was Donald Trump a success? By the numbers, the towers, the brand, the presidency, undeniably. But self-made? The documents answer that one without an asterisk. A man who is a millionaire by 8, who takes in millions a year from his father's company during the exact years he claims he did it alone, who is rescued from his own failures again and again by the same hand, that man built something. He just didn't build it from nothing. He built it from $413 million. And a single perfect sentence that made the world forget the money was ever there. The small loan was real. It was just 413 times bigger than he ever said. Trump told the most successful version of a lie that almost every billionaire on this list tells in some form. The self-made story is the family business. The question is who tells it best. And who got caught? That's the next file we open. If you want to see which self-made fortune was actually built on a father's checkbook next, the channel's right here. The documents are waiting.